Cleveland Browns finalized 2026 coaching staff, with several holdovers from last season, as well as veteran Dom Capers. New Browns coach Todd Monken has finalized a staff for 2026. Though defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz resigned, most of his assistants will remain. Cleveland, which players will be wearing Browns uniforms in 2026 remains anyone's guess, with the team already moving towards or officially parting ways with a number of prominent names. Fortunately, we at least know who will be coaching those players this coming season, from new head man Todd Monken on down. Cleveland finalized its 29-man coaching staff on Tuesday, led by Monken and 3 new coordinators: Travis Switzer on offense, Mike Ruttenberg on defense, and Byron Storer handling special teams. Those 3 had already been announced last month as the club worked to put the finishing touches on who would serve with them. Notably, while veteran defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz made a highly publicized exit after being passed over for the head coaching job, the vast majority of his assistants decided to remain, albeit with a few new titles. Here's a look at the full list of holdovers. Jason Tarver, linebackers coach, who will also add defensive run game coordinator to his duties. The latter role had previously been vacant. Ephraim Bonda, formerly safeties coach, he now becomes defensive pass game coordinator. Jacques Césaire will remain defensive line coach. Brandon Lynch, formerly cornerbacks coach, he will now oversee all defensive backs while also becoming a pass game specialist, a position previously held by Nick Charlton on the offensive side. Jeff Anderson, promoted from defensive quality control to nickelbacks coach. Zach Dunn, promoted to assistant linebackers coach. Of the 7 assistants who served under Schwartz, only assistant defensive line coach Adam Morris is no longer with the organization. That role will be filled by Ralph Street, formerly defensive line coach and run game coordinator at Marshall. 3 additional coaches will also join Ruttenberg's staff, the most distinguished of whom is senior defensive assistant Dom Capers. The 75-year-old built a reputation as one of the game's most respected defensive coordinators and won a Super Bowl in that role for the Green Bay Packers in 2010. He also sports 8 years of experience as a head coach and earned NFL Coach of the Year honors in 1996 with the Panthers, and he returned to Carolina as a senior defensive assistant from 2023 to 25. Along with Capers, Paul Worlow will take over for Anderson as defensive quality control coach following 4 years as a volunteer assistant at Delaware. Shaq Wilson, formerly a member of the New York Jets staff, also joins as a defensive analyst. Things get a lot more interesting on the offensive side, but there are still 3 holdovers. Duce Staley will continue as running backs coach, Sanders Davis will remain an assistant offensive line coach, and Christian Jones will transition from tight ends coach to wide receivers coach. The new names on the offensive staff are as follows. Danny Breyer, offensive pass game coordinator, replacing Chad O'Shea. Formerly an offensive assistant with the Baltimore Ravens while Monken was OC. Jeff Blasco, offensive run game coordinator and tight ends coach, succeeding Jones in the latter role. Previously tight ends coach for the Jets. George Warhop, offensive line coach, replacing Mike Bloomgren. He's held that position for 9 different teams over the past 30 seasons, including the Browns from 2009 to 13, where he coached Hall of Fame left tackle Joe Thomas and All-Pro center Alex Mack. Most recently served 2 years in the role for the Ravens under Monken. Bobby Johnson, assistant offensive line coach, replacing Ben Wilkerson. An Akron native, he was most recently offensive line coach for the Washington Commanders from 2024 to 25. Mike Bajakian, quarterbacks coach, replacing Bill Musgrave. Was most recently offensive coordinator at UMass and previously served as QB's coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 2015 to 18. Matt Baker, assistant quarterbacks coach, a role that had previously been vacant. Most recently spent 2 years as an offensive assistant for the Pittsburgh Steelers. John Wozniak, assistant wide receivers coach, replacing Stephen Bravo Brown. This is his first NFL job after 27 years in the collegiate ranks, including the 2025 season as an offensive assistant at Arizona State. Ian Kolst, offensive quality control coach, a role that had previously been vacant. Most recently worked as a coaching fellow for the Ravens. There will also be 2 offensive analysts. One is Dom Borsani, who will officially join the staff after already spending 3 years in the Browns organization as a research and coaching analyst. The other? Travis Monken, who served the last 2 seasons as offensive quality control coach at Purdue. As you might have guessed, he's also the head coach's son. Finally, Keith Tandy will replace Kyle Hoke as assistant special teams coach. Tandy had the same title in Tampa Bay for the last 6 years, earning a Super Bowl ring in 2020. The Browns also confirmed no one will serve as an assistant or associate head coach, a second-in-command post that had been held by special teams coordinator Bubba Ventrone from 2023 to 25 under Kevin Stefanski. However, John Carr will step in as Monken's chief of staff, a role that had essentially gone unfilled ever since Callie Brownson left Cleveland to join USA Football. Carr most recently coached in high school and additionally worked at Southern Miss when Monken was head coach there. The wind coming off Lake Erie has always carried stories across Northeast Ohio, whispers of old glories, near misses, heartbreak, and relentless hope. In Berea, inside the humming halls of the Cleveland Browns facility, a new chapter is being written. The 2026 coaching staff is finalized, blending steady holdovers with the return of a seasoned football mind in veteran coach Dom Capers. There is something poetic about continuity in a city that has endured so much change. Several familiar faces remain in their roles, anchoring the locker room with institutional memory and hard-earned trust. Players who have grown under their guidance now move with a little more certainty. Terminology doesn't need translating. Expectations don't need explaining. The culture, that gritty, blue-collar ethos Cleveland wears like a badge, doesn't need reinventing. In the meeting rooms, the holdover assistants carry binders heavy with lessons from last season. They remember the fourth-quarter stops that slipped away, the red zone drives that stalled inches short, the moments that demanded just one more detail, one more adjustment. Continuity means those lessons aren't discarded, they're refined. Film cut-ups are sharper. Installations are leaner. Practice scripts hum with purpose. And then there's Capers. When Capers walks into a defensive meeting, it's as if decades of NFL history take a seat at the table. His resume spans eras, from the early days of expansion franchises to coordinating championship-caliber defenses. He doesn't need to raise his voice to command attention. The cadence of experience does that for him. For Cleveland's younger coaches, Capers is a living archive. For the players, he's a chess master. His presence signals not nostalgia, but intention. The Browns aren't simply leaning on the past, they're extracting wisdom from it.